Right, so welcome everybody. Tonight we are looking at Learning Unit 7. We're in Academic Week 10. Can you believe that? Time flies. So yeah, we're starting to look at Learning Unit 7, and as always, remember that we have ICE tasks that I've made available, and I will continue to make available as we go through the learning units. In terms of your POE, we have discussion forums that you can ask questions on if you have any queries, and also I do give you a bit of a breakdown for each task of your POE. I've got some videos for that to just guide you along the way, and as always, if you're not sure, please drop an email, use the discussion forum. The advantage of the discussion forum obviously is that your fellow classmates, they can sort of see if you've had a question and it was answered, so they can also benefit from that as well, and the answer and the question. All right, so let's get going. First question that I've got is for those of you that are working, when you did start your employment, were you 100% ready to start your employment? And I think the standard answer for everybody here would be absolutely no. You can have all the job experience in the world, you can have all the degrees in the world. The moment that you start a job, I don't want to say all is for naught, but there's a learning curve. And book knowledge versus actually doing the job, even if you've got years of experience and you go into a similar job but at a different company, companies work differently. So there will always be a learning curve for you, different policies. You're dealing with office politics, different people, different ways of doing things. Salary changes, structure changes, size differences in companies. There's a lot of different things that vary between companies. So you need to understand that when you go into employment, that's part of what makes it so stressful, even if you have years of experience, is that there's still a sometimes very steep learning curve attached to starting your new job and being productive in it. Right. So one of the things in your textbook, and sometimes people get confused between these two terms, is onboarding versus orientation. And you need to remember that with regards to onboarding and orientation, the one process starts before you actually set foot on the premises to start your job. The other one starts way before that. And so with your orientation, you start orientation when you enter the premises. You've joined or when you've joined the organization, we call it a meeting of the minds, where there's a contract in existence now. I agree to come and work for you. You agree to take me into service and pay me. So orientation basically starts at that point. It's a much shorter process than onboarding. Onboarding is usually a far longer process. And the idea with onboarding is that you are trying to develop behavior and knowledge. And especially in your more complex organizations, developing the knowledge can take quite a bit of time. You might not necessarily immediately be exposed to every single possible scenario. And that's sort of where the trick comes in with onboarding, is that if you suddenly encounter a situation that you have not been briefed on, that you're not familiar with, that you are still in the position to learn from somebody, to get guidance from somebody in terms of what to do and how to handle it. And the idea with onboarding is obviously to make sure you are successful long term in terms of working for the company, to make sure that you are committed to working for the company. And it basically allows any new person coming into the job to be productive and fully functional as soon as humanly possible. Whereas with your orientation, we're basically trying to acquaint you with your job, what the basics of what it entails, and what we expect of you. So that's why it's also a shorter process. Now, very importantly, you need to understand that these processes are important in an organization. Unfortunately, they're also sometimes overlooked and not given the attention that they deserve. A lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort is spent in recruiting people for jobs, appointing people into jobs. So if you are spending that time, spending that money, going to that effort to get somebody into a job, you want to make sure that they're going to be productive. You want to make sure that they fit your company. You want to make sure that they know what to do, that they've got the support, they've got the skills, or that they build up the skills, they build up the knowledge in order to be effective, productive, be satisfied in their jobs. Because if they're not, and that person ends up leaving, or you end up needing to kick that person out, you've wasted all that time, all that money, all that effort to get the person into your organization. And now basically you need to start from scratch. You need to find somebody else. So there's that aspect from an organization itself. Also, you want your people to be happy, because the happier they are, the more productive they are. If you're constantly sitting with somebody that's got to come and ask questions and don't know what to do, and it takes them too long, too long's maybe the wrong wording, but if they should spend minimal amount of time figuring out how to do something, and they're spending triple that time figuring out how to do something, that's not in your best interest as a company. And eventually that person's probably also going to become frustrated, and that's just exacerbating the problem. That's making it worse. So making sure people know exactly what's expected of them, know who they can contact, um, know who on whose door to knock if they've got questions, and what exactly they are required to do. Those things are important. Now, as a new employee, and you guys can think of any situation where you walked into a new place and you've got no idea where you are, and what's going on where. As a new employee, there's a lot of stuff that you need to do, and you need to be aware of. I remember when I most jobs where I start, day one is basically paperwork. So they're taking fingerprints, and access control is sorted. So um, do I need an access card? They sort me out with an access card, and building access. So certain buildings you can only access if you swipe your card, you tap your card. You might need a PIN number for those doors that they require that you enter a number or a PIN or something to get access to whatever is behind the door. Those sort of things get sorted. If you privy to benefits like medical aid and pension fund and those things, you need to decide what medical aid plan do I want to go onto, what pension plan do I want to go onto, or provident fund or whatever. That paperwork needs to be sorted. Your banking details needs to be confirmed. Your SARS number, your income tax number. If you don't have an income tax number, sorting the income tax number. I think I said before, fingerprints, sometimes they do regular background checks, medical clearances if that's required, certifications get checked. You might need to hand in formal copies of your CV and your degree certifications and things like that. So those things get sorted. Where do you park? What time do we take lunch? What time do you have to be on premises? What time can you leave? Do we have a tea break? If so, where do you go for tea? Is there a staff room? Uh, in the kitchen itself, if there's a kitchen in the staff room, which toaster is used by well, if you have a lull needs, which toaster can I use? Which fridge can I use? Is there a prayer room that I can go to say my daily prayers? Um, so all these sorts of things. Where's the cafeteria? Where's my supervisor located? Where's the first aid station? If you're on big factory floors and that sort of thing, they usually have a whole medical bay. Where's the medical bay? What do I do if I get injured on duty, or one of my colleagues gets injured on duty? Where's the fire escape? All those sorts of things. Where are the elevators? Uh, Big premises, which building is where, what's the shortest way to get from this building to that building. Those are all little bits of information that you need. Do I need to clock in when I get in the morning and clock out again? is there attendance register or something I need to sign, or registers or paperwork you require from me every single time I come in? Is it a bring your own device setup? If so, is there somebody that can help me get onto the network? If I get a device, is that a device I can take home with me? What are the terms and conditions attached to having the device? What am I allowed to use it for? What am I not allowed to use it for? Can I install my own software, or must the company install the software? Lots of things, email addresses. So there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen when you start employment, and orientation and your onboarding process assists you with all of that. Uniforms. The list goes on and on and on. Now, all right, now you've been onboarded, you're now part of the organization, or you are being onboarded, you've received your orientation, now you're working for the company. Now motivation starts kicking in as a factor. And as a manager, this is something you need to be aware of. What motivates your staff? Now, in your textbook, they talk about four specific theories of motivation that are relevant. And this also ties in to your whole onboarding process. They talk about 3 phases of onboarding, and one of those things is also understanding that your staff come from different backgrounds. And especially with Maslow, if we look at Maslow's theory, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we know that triangle, and it states that if your physical needs are not met, you cannot progress to safety and security needs. And until your safety and security needs are met, you can't progress to belongingness and social and affiliation needs. And unless those are met, you can't progress to esteem needs. And unless that hasn't been met, you can't achieve self-actualization. So that's sort of what Maslow says. And as an organization, you need to understand that the people that work for you, the people that you are managing, come from different places. They have different life experiences, different circumstances, and you don't leave that at home. It comes to work with you whether you like it or not. So if you are in an environment, living in an environment that is not safe, or you're living in an environment where you don't have electricity, or you don't have running water, or you don't have food, that's going to impact you when you come to work. If you're taking care of terminally ill family members with HIV, if you're taking care of your younger siblings because the parents are missing in action or have passed away, or whatever the case might be, that impacts on you. And as a manager, you need to consider that when you are choosing your leadership and your management strategy for people. It's very, very difficult to have an all-encompassing managerial style. You do, to a certain degree, need to consider context for your employees. So these are the 4 theories. I just went through Maslow very, very briefly. Maslow is the one we cover in a lot of courses, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. The other ones would be your Hertzberg's 2-factor theory, Alderfer's ERG theory, and then McClelland's learned needs theory. So the first one we're going to properly look at is Alderfer. And the reason for that is that Alderfer basically takes Maslow and condenses it. So essentially, what Alderfer argues is that with regards to physiological and safety needs, we're going to call that existence needs. With regards to social and to a certain degree self-esteem, we're going to call that relatedness, mostly social. And then with regards to self-esteem and self-actualization, we're going to call those growth needs. And as a manager, why is this important? Because the focus of an employee is going to be dependent on whether their needs are being catered for in the organization. So if they see a disconnect to tasks related to an unmet need, if a certain need is unmet, there's going to be a disconnect to that task. Any task relating to that need, there's going to be a disconnect. They're not going to see the need for it. They might ignore those tasks altogether. So if I have a need for safety in the organization, for instance, which we all do, if the tasks are constructed in such a way that that safety need is not met, I might ignore some of those tasks. I might not properly do some of those tasks because I feel that they are not serving a purpose in terms of meeting my need for safety. Um, if we talk about relatedness, if I do not see that the tasks I do allow me to effectively work with people, if that need for having people to connect with, for having guidance, for having a platform, a communal language, relationships in the workplace, if that need is not met, then I probably am not going to collaborate effectively with the people that I work with. And then lastly, your growth need. If I don't see myself being able to progress in the organization, if I don't see myself being able to learn new skills, if I don't see myself developing in the organization, and it doesn't necessarily mean promotion or something like that. It just means that you actually become a better employee. You learn things, you grow, you deal with certain things better. If I'm not provided with a means to do that, um, I'm going to systematically start putting in less effort and less time on my job. So that's all of these things will negatively at the end of the day impact on my performance, and the plain and simple reason is that I have no motivation, I've got no satisfaction because I don't feel that my needs are being met by the organization, and at organizational level, and because of that I start withdrawing. Your Hertzberger, or Hertzberg, sorry, your Hertzberg's two-factor theory basically differentiates between hygiene factors and motivational factors. And if we very quickly go back to that first slide over here, with a comparison of the theories, you'll see that when we talk about motivating factors, we talk about things like the work itself, responsibilities that I have in the job, advancement, growth, recognition of achievement. And then with our hygiene factors, we're looking at things like job security, the working conditions, salary, interpersonal relationship quality, and that's with my peers, my supervisors, the people that I supervise. Those are all hygiene factors. Now, importantly to note is that there is a certain degree of satisfaction that can be gained from hygiene factors being addressed. So if I get a good salary, that might serve to a certain degree, provide me with some degree of satisfaction, and essentially prevents a certain amount of dissatisfaction. But it doesn't automatically mean that I'm fully satisfied. You can be paid a lot, but if your working conditions are nonsense and rubbish, then it's all for naught. If I don't look, and again, if we look at specifically at these factors, manufacturers, if I have I can be paid whatever I want to. If I haven't got job security, I'm only going to be partially satisfied. I'm not going to be fully satisfied. If my relationship with my peers are, if that's not fully there, then there's going to be a problem. If I have bad relationships with people, again, I can have the job security and great working conditions and a great salary, but if my interactions with my colleagues are strained, or I don't like who I work with, I'm not exactly satisfied in my job. There are aspects that I'm not satisfied with. So it's not a guarantee that if the hygiene factors are met, that I'm going to be fully satisfied with my job. I might not be dissatisfied, but I'm not fully satisfied. Now, the motivators, on the other hand, and these are factors internal to the job itself, the work itself. These are the things that drive satisfaction and increase motivation. So, as a manager, part of your job is understanding what motivates people, um, So you need to figure out, okay, for this person, do they want recognition? If they want recognition, what type of recognition do they want? Do they want growth? What do they consider to be growth? Because one person's idea of growth can be advancement through the organization. Um, in other words, they swiftly move up through the ranks. Another person, it might just be a case of, oh, okay, I'm teaching you how to use a new system, or I'm adding skills, some job enlargement. That might be, I might consider that growth. Um, Getting a better performance review this month than I did last month. That might be growth for me. Doing certain tasks faster than I did it a month ago, or whatever the case might be. So as a manager, and this is obviously challenging, it's figuring out what those motivating factors are, and then using that to motivate your employees, and to get buy-in from your employees, and to increase their satisfaction through those means. Then lastly, your McClelland's theory of needs. Now, essentially, if we look at McClelland, you can see here we've got the need for achievement, the need for affiliation, the need for power. And what these needs say is that, again, you as a manager need to know, does a person have a high need for achievement? Do they have a high need for affiliation? Do they have a high need for power? Because that's going to influence how they conduct themselves, and how they view themselves. So a person with a high need for achievement, for instance, I might be able to motivate them by giving them challenging goals, giving them goals that are challenging but still achievable, and maybe start systematically upping the ante. Once they are able to achieve one goal, then slightly raising the goalpost, so they still have goals that they can reach and achieve, but there's a bit of a challenge attached to it. So they have to push themselves a little bit. They have to get out of their comfort zone a little bit to achieve those goals. Performance feedback, recognition for accomplishments. Right. Often these people will like to take tasks that they have to take individual responsibility for. And that they can, once they're done, see, oh, okay, these are the results of my effort. Wow, okay, great. So as a manager, if you know that somebody's got a high need for achievement, that's your goal, is giving them these challenges that they can use to further motivate themselves, and to gain satisfaction from their jobs. And obviously, the more satisfied they are, your productivity will increase. There's a correlation between those things. If I've got an employee with a high need for affiliation, social connections are what they crave. So am I creating networking opportunities for them? Am I creating opportunities for them to act or work in a group, to team building activities, ways for them to be able to connect to their peers, be accepted, be liked by their peers, ways for them to build relationships, and to use that to have a better, more positive working environment. And then lastly, your power need. If they have a high need for power, these people will want some form of influence or control or authority over others. So do I provide an opportunity for that? Are there chances for them to go into leadership positions, formally or informally? Am I providing them with leadership training that they are able to hone that desire, and learn how to channel that desire in a good way? Am I giving them opportunities to make decisions that might impact their unit directly, or their department, the organization as a whole? Am I giving them opportunities to lead in a team? And again, this can be formal or informal. Lead in a department. And as a manager, that's important then to understand what drives your team members, what drives your subordinates, and to take that and utilize that and harness that in order to make sure they are as satisfied as humanly possible, as motivated as humanly possible, which in turn then translates to better performance and greater productivity. So that is essentially it for this week. I've covered some of the basics, and obviously if there are certain aspects that you are not sure about, certain things you want to ask about, please feel free to do so. Certain sections that you might not be clear on, that you would like me to do little videos on or add discussions on, I'll gladly do so. And otherwise, I hope you had if you celebrate that you had a blessed Easter, and best of luck for the week ahead and all your tasks. We heading into the final stretch now, so hang tight and good luck with everything, and then I will see you guys again in 2 weeks time. Have a great day and a great evening further.